Today marks the last days of the ANC policy conference held at the Nasrec Expo Centre in Johannesburg. The 6 days of the meetings and closed commissions with all ANC structures, including party branches from across the country, have seen various resolutions being announced during regular media briefings. Today, after lunchtime, President Jacob Zuma is expected to close off the 5th policy conference. The big question is, will the ruling party come out united and stronger than last week? Massive storm over ANC's policy and coordination head Joel Netjietende's report back on the white monopoly capital tag at the policy conference. Reporting back on the Strategy and Tactics Commission, Joel announced that 9 out of 11 policy commissions have voted that there are many forms of monopoly capital globally, and therefore it is not right to characterize it on the basis of color in South Africa. However, a majority of delegates dispute this. They say they only reported back on what the Commission said and completely bypassed the final stance taken by the plenary after the Commission's report back. The plenary had reportedly resolved to accept the white monopoly capital terminology in the context of SA. The matter has been referred to steering committee and could be seen as an act of serious indiscipline. Let's first listen in to what Joel had to say.
9 out of those 11 commissions said the phenomenon of monopoly capital is a global one, and it manifests itself differently in various parts of the globe. And in that context, it would therefore not be correct to characterize ours simply as white monopoly capital. It was also felt that we need to elaborate in that context that in the South African situation, we cannot run away from the reality of white dominance in the economy, in the context of assets, of income, of the professions, as well as other privileges that we have inherited from the past.
With a storm over comments made by Joel Netjietende over white monopoly capital, it would be interesting to see what he said earlier, which is in contrast to statements made yesterday. In 1996, Netjietende said, and I quote, "The fundamental contradiction in South African society is mainly white monopoly capital on the one hand and the rest of society essentially black on the other," unquote. But yesterday, while presenting Strategy and Tactics discussion document, he said, and I quote, "The phenomenon of monopoly capital is global and thus not be good to categorize it as white monopoly capital," unquote. Some suggest that Joel Netjietende's action of bypassing the plenary's final resolution could land him in hot water for serious indiscipline.
Branches to be able to elect directly.
If anybody went out and said that the majority of commissions, minority of commissions and so on, that is against the spirit of how as the African National Congress we deal with issues. Because issues that come from commissions, that come from regions, from provinces, they get to be tabled in plenary. As soon as they are tabled in plenary, you no longer talk commissions, because now they are deposited into plenary. When they are resolved by plenary as recommendations to the National Conference, you don't say commissions are recommending to the National Conference. You say policy conference is recommending to National Conference. That's why everything else is still going to be discussed and debated in branches, and then it goes to the National Conference.
It was a consensus. That's white monopoly capital. Yes. Wow. Now, why do you present something that is not the true reflection of what was discussed in the commissions? If you go back without this thing being corrected, there's going to be anarchy in the ANC, and they will call it ill-discipline. Because people will be saying it is not a true reflection. The true reflection is that we agreed that there's white monopoly capital.
South Africa suffered a colonialism of a special time, whereby the colonizer and the colonizee are sharing the same space. Who are those people who are in the cycle of the monopoly capital? That is where you identified the color into those people. You then link the color with the same resolution that we have taken before, that South Africa suffered the colonialization of a special type, and therefore it simply means the monopoly capital in South Africa is that of a special type.
There is general consensus amongst members and delegates in this conference that white dominance in all sectors of the economy is a problem. Now we must either say here people are afraid to say white monopoly capital because tomorrow the rand will fall. They are afraid to face the facts because they don't want to be associated with Paul Pottinger because they say it's a Paul Pottinger name.
Concept, yeah.
But it's not. Comrade Chris Malekan, he just issued out a document. A document that it even quotes that in 1962 the SACP said there's white monopoly capital. You have people who are coming here not wanting this program of radical economic transformation, but because they know in the ANC you put a program first, then you put leadership. They now want to pretend as if they are part, they understand the program. But obviously, their intention is to distort the program. They are not necessarily believing in the program. They are proxies of white monopoly capitalism.
If you are sitting with 97% of the JSE in white hands, and we are still able to come back and say that white monopoly capital does not exist, there's a problem. Don't say to us that capital is capital. Capital has got no color. White capital exists, the monopolies are there, the oligopolies are there. Why are we having this debate to say that white monopoly capital doesn't exist?